It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Once a year. Welcome to The Focus Group. John Nash here with my very good friend and co-host, Tim Bennett. Live in studio. It's not Skype, and we're 1 week away from Tim's impending back surgery.
Back surgery.
Which sounds like it came back through time from the year 2022.
Well, I'm excited
Maybe
by
2025.
it.
Hey, focusgroupradio.com is our website where you could find out all about the show, all the platforms we're on, audio, video. And if you are joining us on Facebook right now live or YouTube, feel free to call 1-877-962-6846. And you can join the conversation right here in studio. We want to thank our producers in the booth who bring us to you every week. We have John on video operating the brand new TriCaster system. John, I think everything looks sparkly.
Really brand new.
Yeah, it's
brand
not
new.
bad, right?
It's a new board, new everything. And then we have Garrett on audio. Garrett keeps us on the dime. And Garrett gets his one-liners in, and they're always good.
Are we still in San Diego? Do we still have San Diego behind us in the new TriCaster?
That's our Sandy. No, there's new sets coming.
Oh, we got new sets?
They haven't been
after
loaded
break,
yet.
So we have to move to a new locale.
Well, we're on the San Diego set. It's a morning
It
show.
always reminds me of San Diego morning. Good morning, San Diego.
Good morning. There's a raccoon on the highway slowing things down.
Well, if you're a weatherman in San Diego, 72 and sunny all week.
Where's my paycheck?
Weather's next. 72 and sunny all month. 72 and sunny all year.
I think you and I totally missed the boat on career.
I could have been a weatherman.
Although, I don't know. Like,
Weather person, whatever.
Our in the city, we have Janice Huff on Channel 4 here in New York City. And she's been our weather gal for I don't know how long. And I love Janice. And I think that I saw her speak one day, though, she was at a charity event.
Is she a weather person?
She's a weather person. And she said something about that it's one of those jobs where you can be half right and half wrong and still get your paycheck.
Well, you know what I think. It's like being a NASA scientist. Who knows if the light's 10 billion light years away? Who's going to prove me wrong?
Yeah, true. All right.
Or that sun's for, I know Don from Alabama will call and yell at me, but it's like, the light from that star's, traveled 7 billion years. How do you know?
Well, they know.
Who cares? 7 billion years?
It's different than, getting...
Philadelphia is famous for its gay weather people. So we've got this guy on Channel 6, Adam Joseph, and another guy, of course, I'm going to forget his name, but he just married Jonathan Lovitz from the NGLCC, who's been on our show a couple of times, but he's since moved to Philadelphia, although he still works for the NGLCC. But so they have this battling gay weathermen, sort of young-looking, hot weathermen sort of thing.
How does that battle play out? Are there outfits that are there like are they?
Well, now they
buff.
They're both married. They have children. You're gonna have children. Blah blah blah. So, but yeah, it's one's a triathlete. Yabba dabba do.
I would really love it if the gay weatherman in Philadelphia only did the weather for Palm Springs. Here's where I'd rather be. 80 degrees today. And then someone says, "What's the weather in Philly like?" I don't care. I'd rather not be here. It's gonna be the northeast weather. So on today's show, we're going to talk. We're going to flip it. I actually have it reversed because later in the show we're going to talk about Barbara Bush. And when we originally planned this segment, we were going to talk about her decision to seek comfort care.
Which is still an important conversation.
Very important conversation. But since we did the notes and we were playing our show, she literally passed away. But we could still talk about her because she's an amazing woman. And then later on, we're going to talk about something that Tim saw that Amazon was selling that I loved the Twitter comments on that one. The Twitter comments on that one.
So lo and behold, Don from Alabama's on the phone.
It's called physics. There's a reason it's called physics.
What's physics?
The physical laws of the universe. Light as it travels redshifts. The degree to which it redshifts determines the age of the light.
So I'm going to turn
the more red in the light, the older the light. And there is a calculation that can be done as that light is positioned on the spectrum that determines how far away that light came.
So I'm trying to. I know this myself, Don. I'm trying to be pithy here and come up with a way of not redshifting the light that hits me, so I look younger, so that perhaps the light that bounces off of me is moving much faster, and you get the impression that I'm myself from 10 years ago.
7 billion years old.
Well, just remember, no one ever actually sees you in the present moment.
No.
Hey, that's true. That's actually, from a physics point of view, that's true.
How fun are you at a party there, Don? Are you fun at a cocktail party?
Oh, I'm a hoot. I'm a regular stand-up comedian.
I had a crazy boss who's got a crazier wife, and she told us her daddy could see the future.
Uh-huh.
And so we all bit. We said, how can your daddy see the future? He says, well, he was an airline pilot, and when he'd be flying, he could look down and see a car, but he could also see a mile or two ahead, and that was the future where that car was going, and that car didn't know it. So
Hey,
is that the same sort of thing?
I use that when I bike ride. When I'm riding up a hill or down a hill, I could see my future.
See the future. You're looking down the hill. There's
Don,
the future.
I did not follow this, and I don't want to get you entangled in too much, but did SpaceX successfully launch the new exoplanet observatory the other day?
I have not seen that it actually left the ground yet.
But it was supposed to launch yesterday at like 6:30 Eastern Standard Time or something, I think,
Yeah,
right?
I think there may have been a delay. Like I said, nothing's come up that has prompted that something has left the ground, but it is possible I missed it. I've been kind of tied up working on this museum project. So,
is that Branson or is that Musk?
This is Elon
Musk.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Yep.
Now, here's what I don't understand. There's rumor that Tesla may go bankrupt.
The car company.
Yeah, but that's been going on since they started making cars.
Right. So I'm wondering whether if he can't get the car together, do you want to jump in a rocket to Mars?
Yeah, actually, the rocket program is very successful.
I don't know.
Yes.
If you can't build a $30,000 electric car, do you want to fly to Mars?
Well, that's apples and oranges in this case.
Okay.
Different money, different teams, different engineering.
Well,
One of the big complaints that they have with NASA is that the rocket NASA is currently working on is just the Saturn V dressed up and with a fresh coat of paint.
Oh.
Whereas what SpaceX and private industry is doing, new engines, new approaches to propulsion, new technologies.
Yeah, and greater reusability. But, it's funny you mentioned the Saturn V. Netflix actually has a really wonderful 52-minute documentary on the team that brought the Saturn V to life. And up until recently, the Saturn V was the most powerful rocket man has ever built, if I'm not mistaken. It was the workhorse of the space program. But the documentary is fascinating because I keep forgetting that when the rocket was made, it was the 1960s.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're talking about mechanical engineering and perfect specs and things that you would not expect, but they achieved it.
Yeah, if we can ever get you guys to Huntsville, Alabama, I'll let you go up close personal and actually touch one.
Well, there's some rumor, we're waiting to get approval that we will be headed that way probably in September. We'll be doing a road trip.
And Don, you will be a part of the show at that point because if we're pulling into Rocket Town, there's going to be some video and audio grabs we're doing. So get ready for your
Rocket Town.
You better not redshift your light. You don't want to look young.
Thank you, Don.
Look forward to it, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. You knew you were going to get schooled by Don.
I knew. Well, yeah, but I do say it's one of those things. I don't know. A weatherman, I do question the weather profession.
It's gotten better. And could I tell you, different weather people know how to do it differently. Upstate, I trust our weather guys, our weather people, perfectly. They nail it all the time.
There's no hype.
And there's no hype. That's the thing. They'll be like, tomorrow we're expecting some precipitation. Maybe we're going to get 4 to 6 inches, and no one goes crazy.
No, because it's the Northeast and it may snow. You're not going to get snowed in enough where you need to buy all the toilet paper and bread and milk
Exactly. And I can't figure out bread and milk, especially Wonder Bread and milk. It's like
particularly us who don't eat carbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
All right. So you're a week away from this revolutionary surgery for your lower back.
It was revolutionary, but hopefully it's going to help.
It's going to be very helpful. And 2 weeks from now when you're recovering, which you'll be up and about, but I think we'll be doing you by Skype, and
We'll have to see. Maybe Brian can get us a better background, and I can at least look like I'm sitting in light.
I was thinking, I think we need to talk
Rather
something
than
funny.
the dark.
Yeah. Oh, that was last time. That was when Don called and said you were in the witness protection program.
Brian had that big black drape,
Light absorbing.
all the light, and then of course Richard's got 20 lot bulbs on throughout the house. So
If Osama bin Laden dipped his head in,
Right.
he would have been in the cave with Al Qaeda.
that'd have been fun.
All right, so what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
This is one of these that I couldn't believe it, and I actually had to do research again. But it showed up in a number of different places. And here's the headline, John: "Painkillers turned me gay." Says a man who's broken up with his girlfriend and lined up a date with a man after taking drugs to treat a broken foot. So this guy, he's a Brit, he's a young man. He claims that he became gay after taking painkillers when he broke his foot in a go-karting accident. Scott Purdy, 23, a hot-blooded heterosexual, enjoyed dating women before he started taking Lyrica. So Lyrica is, it's and I'll probably say it wrong, pregabalin, Pregabalin is the drug name, but it's under the marketing term from Pfizer as Lyrica. And the drug was initially used to help people treat epilepsy, pain associated with the brain, and generalized anxiety disorder. So he was taking the pill for pain, and he said as soon as he started taking the pill, he became sexually attracted to men. So he broke up with his girlfriend of 6 months, and then when he said he realized he had this attraction to men, he had told his girlfriend about it. And she had said she said maybe she kind of understood it but wasn't so sure why. And he said, when he was younger, he thought he might have been curious about men, but he was always with women. But now that he's taken Lyrica, he's become very attracted to men. And he has since broke up with her. And so they've checked in with the doctors, and they said one of the side effects is loss of libido and mood swings. They said they've never heard. Pfizer says we know nothing about this making somebody gay.
By the way, that one side effect, loss of libido, doesn't sound like he's losing any libido.
No.
It's like it's ramping up.
So he says he's bringing this to the attention bringing it to our attention because if anyone gets prescribed this in the future, he doesn't want it to affect their heterosexual relationships. So it took him a while to realize this, he said, and when he stopped taking the pill, he became straight again. So it took the gay away when he stopped taking Lyrica. You boys want a pain pill? Boys in the booth. John and Garrett, maybe we can give you some Lyrica and see how things go. He says now, though, he started taking it again. The pills made him very happy. He says he's keeping taking it, and he now feels happy, and he's actually accepting the fact that he's, with his sexuality being gay, he's very open about it. It says it's liberating. And he's met some guy on the site called Plenty of Fish, and he's actually going to go out on a date with this guy. And he says men is what he's craving right now. So Pfizer came back and said, we've tested this drug over and over and over again. If anything, it's has great success for people with neuropathic pain, generalized anxiety, and epilepsy. And if anything, it takes away libido, so they can't figure out why he's saying it makes them gay. So instead of, you could take the gay away, or bring the gay in with the Lyrica.
Yeah, I'm sitting here, and my brain is having trouble absorbing this from a scientific point of view. I just think this is one hell of a smokescreen. I mean, he could have said, he could have found a bag of red M&Ms from 1972 before they banned red dye number whatever it was, and said it was the red dye. I mean,
and it goes on and on and on. I just laugh. And they talk to all these different scientists to, say, is this possible? Is this possible? Of course, they all say no. So they think it maybe it was his way to get out of a relationship with a lady.
It's a pretty, I don't know if I'm the girlfriend. I'm probably saying, honey, you're right. It's probably the pill. And she probably packed her stuff and thought, I am so lucky to be getting out of here because what a way to like walk out of a relationship, right? Lyrica made me gay.
Lyrica made me gay.
He would be the only, according to the pharmaceutical company, he'd be the only person in the world
in history took a drug that made him
They
gay.
made him gay. So I'm sure their marketing folks are like, yeah, we don't need to worry about this. We don't need to worry about this.
So what caught your eye?
My caught my eye was inspired by you because of a story you told from years ago. Two stories. One of them was about a video on YouTube where a guy brings a typewriter to a library. Click, 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 click.
Did you see it on Facebook? I put it to our Facebook
It's
page.
hysterical because everybody's quietly tapping on laptops, but then they ask him, I can't afford a Mac, and it's a typewriter with the plugged in and And the other one was our friend Jay, who you went to college with. She used to bring a typewriter to class.
Drag it around.
The thing goes on. She puts the cartridge in, and she's typing her notes in class. So I'm looking at a site called Mashable, and I see a headline that instantly made me smile. Kid gets around no phone rule for physics exam by bringing in a record player.
So no phone.
So the teacher said no phones because kids would want to listen to music while they took the test,
Right.
but he's
no.
afraid that there would be audio, like here's or you could listen to physics stuff. So the teacher strolls around. The teacher's name is Eric Sauerker, a teacher at Hudson Bay High School in Vancouver, Washington, tweeted a photo of a student who brought in a portable record player to get around the no cell phone ban. And basically he said, I said no cell phones, not even for music since it could be used to cheat. And he walked around, he sees this guy has a portable turntable with one little jack for his headphones. And as the teacher walks around, the disc that's spinning is Kanye West, and he's jamming, playing Kanye.
So he's listening to the music that way.
He brought a bunch of albums. If you zoom in, John was doing. He actually, I think that's the Kanye.
Oh, that's hilarious. And the teacher let him do it?
And do you see the stack of albums,
Yeah.
the LPs? So, so follow up, the student did really well. In fact, let me see the tweets here. I called these up.
So the teacher let him bring the record player. I wonder if because sometimes those earbuds, you can hear the music. I wonder if it affected the other kids. Could you hear that?
The teacher said, as a follow-up, this student did ace the test whilst listening to a college dropout. So I guess Kanye was a dropout or something. But I thought that was a really...
If you were the teacher,
I'd laugh my ass off.
and you'd let him do it?
Because he said
rules.
no cell phones, but the kid says I can listen to it's LP. I don't know who's funnier, the teacher that let it happen or the young guy that did it. And I think the young guy deserves, as the writer of the piece says, deserves an A+. This kid's going places. Think about that for a second. You're at home. You like listening to music. It helps you study or take a test. Teacher says no cell phone. You look over to your right. You have a record player, like a close and play with a little handle, right? Let's bring it to the... And without even I'm sure he was cool as a cucumber, plugged that thing in, put the headphones in, and started playing records. I mean, halfway through the test, he had to flip the LP. Yeah. It would have been better if he brought a disc washer. Cleans the disc, puts the fluid on. I love the disc washer.
Again, you're so precise about getting the record clean and the whole.
But so this is one of those analog solutions to a digital problem that I think is brilliant, and I think the writer's right. The kid deserves an A+ for this very inventive way of getting around the no cell phone ban.
I love the ingenuity, and
that's what I'm looking for.
And that's why I asked you about what you would do as a teacher, because I think when we were going to school, and particularly, I don't know, your grade school, I think you guys were a bit more in Middlebury, a bit more buttoned up than we were in Southbury.
I don't know about that.
But I had this hippie of a teacher, Mr. Turchuk, who...
I remember Turchuk, yeah.
When I think about it now, and he got a lot of gruff for it at the time, I do remember, because our class was a little bit odd. But he would take attendance in the morning about 8:30, and then leave.
What is this?
He'd leave until lunchtime. And his only instruction was, I want you kids to figure out what you're going to do today, and then when we come back after lunch, we're going to talk about what we did. And when I think about that now, how unconventional that was, but it's still some of the greatest memories I have, because some people rallied. There were leaders that rose to the top. Jennifer Hummel was one of them. I still remember. There were a number. Matt Carr was another kid. And, some kids put a play together. Some kids worked on maybe doing a newspaper. Some kids just built stuff. Some kids just fooled around, did nothing. But when you think about that, to me, it still made an impact of
So it was
allowing a kid to learn that way versus let's do, write down this spelling word for 10 times. And then 2 + 2 is 4. 4 + 4 is 8.
Was he bringing to life? Was Lord of the Flies? Was that the book where the boys are shipwrecked on an island? Am I getting that right, guys?
Lord of the
Yeah, John. Garrett, I look Garrett. Just thumbs up.
Don't question John's memory. Yeah.
No, I'm slipping lately. But that's where the kids all kind of like. It's just a bunch of boys, and then that natural stuff starts happening where they're the leaders, the weak ones. But this sounds like he's decided, hey, I think this is a good idea. I'll make this book come to life. I'll just walk out of the classroom.
Well, the first time he did it, we all just kind of like, now what? Isn't this great? But then you realize you had to do something. We put together a Thanksgiving Day parade. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. I mean, when I think about it now, it was actually, now, I still to this day, as my college professors told me, and I learned in high school, you were out to lunch during grammar, Bennett. I mean, where a comma is and using a semicolon, some of these other things I might not have picked up along the way, and pronouns, things like this.
Oh, and the one that we get dinged for all the time is me and
I and me. So,
and Tim,
some of those more traditional things I seem to have missed. And I used to get in trouble in college for it all the time, but...
Now, see, you think
a parade.
If you think that Middlebury was buttoned up, I had Alfie Miller for industrial arts shop class, and boy, did we have a wild ride in that one. Like I don't know if I've told this story before in this format. Certainly over at Sirius I did, but the time he cut off the end of his finger.
Oh, I love that story.
Showing us how not to use the bandsaw. So we were there in this room, and we're like the little classroom. Then all around the classroom, outside the glass windows, is machinery.
Table saws and stuff.
Everything. Lathes, table saws, band saws, sandpaper. So we all, before we leave the class, we have to put on our safety goggles. Remember those green things? And they wrapped around your head, and they had holes on the sides. And we're all walking around with the safety goggles on. And he takes us to the band saw. He goes, "Now, boys," and for some reason we were separated. Girls had home ec, boys had shop class. Well, that was back then. And so I'm going to show you how not to use the bandsaw. And he's got the green goggles on, and he walks over to this thing and starts up, making, that makes that noise. And he's standing with his hand on this platform, and he's holding a block of wood, and it's like he's holding it so that the middle finger is a little further out than the other fingers on his hand. And he's talking to us, and as he's doing it, the platform is vibrating, and the block is drifting back.
My God.
And then he turns slightly, goes, "Now let me show you, this is not the way to," and he goes, right through, and the tip of his finger comes off and flies into a pile of sawdust. And blood is and everybody with the green goggles, we're all looking up and down and sideways. No one knows what to do except John Sheehy, very industrious John Sheehy. He dove and he got that tip out of the pile, and he handed it to Alfie Miller. He goes, "Here's the tip of your finger." And Alfie's just standing there with his glasses on, holding the tip of his own finger. He goes, "Class is dismissed."
Did you laugh?
Oh, we were mortified. And then I think it was Brian Morgan said, he goes, "If class is dismissed, do we have the hall pass?" And he just waved us away, like, here we were trying to be technically and good students. And the other time that he did something was when he electrocuted himself. He goes, he was teaching us how paper is not a conductor. Boys, today we're going to learn about conductors. Some materials conduct, some don't. Paper's one that don't. He had 2 copper strips and a piece of paper in between, and the strips had wire on each side that went to a big voltometer thing, like something out of a Frankenstein movie with a big dial on the front. And so John Sheehy, who saved his fingertip, was the one that, "John, you come up and you're gonna help, you're gonna assist me," because then he was a star after he saved the finger. So he comes up, and Alfie holds the paper between the 2 copper strips, and he said, "Now, John, turn the amps up to 5. And John turns his dial, and suddenly Alfie's hands go rigid, and his forearms go rigid, and he starts shaking, and he goes, "Turn it off!" And then John cranks that baby up to 20. And Alfie's whole body is rigid, almost like you want to say saliva's coming out of his mouth. He goes, "Turn it off!" And then finally John just flicks the switch, boo, and Alfie drops his hands. The copper things clank on the desk. The paper flutters away, and there's silence. And then he just says, "Get out of here."
Why did it electrocute him?
Because he was using a piece of cheap copy paper. I can't imagine.
Probably from China, like my shoes during the MRI.
I imagine. China, yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of Jim. Do you remember Jim Miller?
Oh, yeah.
Jim Miller tells this story. It's very quick, but they were going on a field trip and they were going to go see Bessie the Mechanical Cow. Bessie the Mechanical Cow, this is in Pittsburgh suburb, and Bessie was supposed to, you could learn how to milk the cow and whatever. Well, Bessie broke down. So they contacted a local farmer to bring in a real cow. And he said that, and they were going to learn how to milk this cow, whatever. And he said all the little girls in all the little dresses. He said, back in the 60s when he went on a field trip, everybody was in their finery.
You dressed in your finery.
And he said they were standing there, and he said he all of a sudden saw the cow's tail go up. They're trying to figure out how they're going to milk this cow, and since Bessie would broke down, and he said explosive diarrhea all over everybody. The cow crapped, spread all over the room, sprayed all over everybody. All the kids, and screaming and yelling. The teachers said that we were all full of poop, and they had to figure out how they're going to get the kids all hosed off, and the parents were outraged. But it's those sort of things that I just love. Bessie the Mechanical Cow. It broke down, so they went and brought a real cow in, and then the cow just let loose on everybody. The kids had to get hosed off.
Oh my God!
Went home early.
That would have been. I don't know that happens today, honestly. Parents are the helicopter parenting, right?
You couldn't do it.
Anyway.
What do we do next? Did we do everything?
It's his birthday.
Oh.
Everyone does celebrity birthday
forgot we
greetings,
went off-
but the
went off
Focus
track.
Group is the
Thoroughly
only
off
show
the
in the
rails.
universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So, April 18th, born April 18th, 1956, Marjorie Gross. I didn't know Marjorie. She died June 7th in 1996 at 40 years old of ovarian cancer. But she was she was born in Toronto, Canada. She was a stand-up comedian here. She was one of the early group of female stand-up comedians here in New York City. And she used to perform at Catch a Rising Star in the comic strip. And then she got her break into television as a sitcom writer for Square Pegs with Jessica Parker.
So she was a head writer.
She was a head writer.
Okay, that's a hard job.
Yeah, and from there she ended up on the David Letterman show as a writer, and then in 1994 she got a big break with two of her good friends, Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, and she became a writer for Seinfeld. And some of her, they said even when she was getting sick, though, when she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, that Jerry actually put a cot in her office so she could lie down and still write. And she wrote up right until she died. Some of her famous episodes, the Facility Jerry. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan.
Yeah.
The Understudy, the Showerhead, which is my favorite because I hate weak low flow, and everybody did the low flow showerheads, and the whole cast ends up having flat hair because of the low flow. And they said she made light of the fact that she had this illness. Her mother had died of the same thing, but she said it was interesting that she said when women get a tumor, they compare them to citrus fruit sizes. Size of an orange, size of a lemon. She said, but when men get them, it's size of a baseball size. She said, for some reason, men's tumors are sports related and women's are citrus related.
It's a Me Too moment with tumors, right?
They said right up until she died that she still had a sense of humor. She said she wanted to hold off to die into November because she didn't want to risk being reincarnated as one of Madonna's children because Madonna was pregnant at the time.
She said that? That's hysterical.
So they said the 8th season premiere of The Foundation of Seinfeld was dedicated to her memory. But she's a very successful writer and, of course, died much too young. So Marjorie Gross was our...
Excellent business birthday, Tim. I love that because we don't often profile people in her industry like, writers, head writers for shows and comedic writers, and it's a hard one.
I wondered about that. Do they get... because the people on any of these sitcoms now were smart enough to get a lot of the residual, right? You get the residual dollars. I wonder if writers get that.
I don't know. If
you're a writer, do you get...
Good question.
Do you get the residual? I don't know.
It's a good one. And it's a nice entertainment bridge to our Deep Discount segment. So as many of you know, and if you're a fan of the show, Deep Discount has been a sponsor of ours for quite a while now. We're happy to be working with them. Visit focusgroupradio.com. Click on the shark. Mateys. I don't know. That's my shark thing. It's a pirate thing, but it's kind of hardwired. It's like a tick. So there, I've done it now. So click on the logo and start shopping. The sale this week is Broadway and musicals. Now, at first we were thinking we were going to be challenged on this one. I don't think we're good gays. I don't think I go to enough musicals and I don't do enough stuff.
No?
No, but I went to Deep Discount. I went to the Broadway musical sale, and lo and behold, a couple of pages in, what do I see but gold? Gold in them there hills. And the movie I want to profile is none other than Liberace's, I think, only movie, and it's called Sincerely Yours.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's
not
Tim's
it.
Sweet Charity. That's a good one though. So, Sincerely Yours featured Liberace as a piano player who is going to lose his hearing, and he decides he's going to help people, and then his hearing comes back. But it's got a pretty interesting cast: Joanne Drew, Dorothy Malone, William Demarhurst.
Does Bob own this?
Bob owns this indeed. In fact, he told me about this particular clip that we're going to play. So, Liberace in his day was considered a ladies' man, which
Like Marcus Bachmann.
Marcus Bachmann, which makes you just smile. You're like, okay, he's a ladies' man. So Garrett's going to play an audio clip from Sincerely Yours, and in this clip, Liberace's schooling someone on how she should not be treating the piano.
Please, my dear young lady. What are you doing to my piano? Teasing it? Flirting with it? This is not a Scrabble board. Where did you practice your skills? Reaching for martinis?
And scene. Like, could you imagine the director, Liberace, and scene.
How stiff was that? It was like he was
That's
reading
my
it.
point. That's why it wasn't a stretch for him to play a piano player in this movie, because that's what he did for a living.
But him reading dialogue was not so good.
Please. What are you doing to my piano? Where'd you learn your scales?
learn your
Reaching for
skills?
Scrabble tiles or whatever.
Reaching for a
So that's my pick. I don't. It's not expensive. Definitely, it's a must see if you're a fan of Lee. I think even if you're not, you'll get him playing all his favorite pieces. So there you go.
Well, it's just one of those camp classics, right?
Oh, it's total camp.
That's what we love. I picked
What could be called a camp classic.
camp classic as well. It was based on a Fellini movie, which was a screenplay of Knights of Cabaret. I will say it wrong. Cabaret, Cabiria. Cabaret, I think it is. I'm horrible with Italian, I guess it is. So it's from a Fellini movie, and it was initially about a dance hall girl, but it was redone as a movie. And
Cabiria?
Cabiria, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Cabiria.
I should know
It's not
because
even
it's a
a guess.
Fellini movie.
It's Knights of Cabiria. Yeah.
Cabiria. All right. I know all the other gays out there are going to yell at me, but it was from a Fellini movie, and it was about romantic ups and downs of a hopeful dance hall hostess.
This is starring.
And then it was redone, and the character became a dancer for hire at a Times Square dance hall, which had Cheetah Rivera, Shirley MacLaine, Sammy Davis Jr., Ricardo Montalban. And it came out originally in 1969. You can get it for under $15 in DVD at deep discount. Oddly, I was introduced to the movie in a real roundabout way.
And this is Sweet Charity.
Sweet Charity.
Yeah.
So Tom Yaz, who's a famous Boston VJ or Provincetown VJ, does the video video stuff in Provincetown mix-ups. He takes this movie, Sweet Charity, and puts B-52 songs from Funplex, took the Funplex Dancing Now song to it, and it is so perfect. If you go to YouTube and type it in, it sometimes gets taken down a lot, but it gets put back up. It matches the music and the dancing. I would just say Dancing Now, B-52s, and they take Sweet Charity and the scenes with Shirley MacLaine, and it fits the B-52 song perfectly. And it's almost as if it was built for Sweet Charity was built for the B-52 songs, or they wrote it to be
it's
part
like Wizard of Oz and
Yes.
Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon.
So it's unbelievable, and it fits perfectly. And they even said Fred Schneider and some of the B-52s love it. They thought it was even great, too, because they didn't do videos for that. So anyway, that was my choice.
So we both thought this was going to be a hard category to pick, and yet we found some great titles to recommend to the listeners. New release this week is the movie The Post. And that's Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. And Meryl Streep plays publisher Katharine Graham of the Washington Post. And Tom Hanks plays Ben Bradley. Now, the interesting thing about this movie is I kind of didn't realize what this was actually about when the movie came out. I thought it was all about Watergate, but it actually is about the Pentagon Papers that fell into reporters' hands, which basically was a study that detailed the true scope and likelihood of success, which was actually failure during the Vietnam War, and that's what this is about, was the publishing of the Pentagon Papers. I would like to see it. I think they're both great actors, and I think the movie did all sorts of good stuff at the box office and in award season. So There you go. So let's wrap it up, Tim.
So that's Deep Discount. We recommend Sweet Charity, Sincerely Yours, which is a Liberace movie. And, of course, the new release this week is The Post. Head over to focusgroupradio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo. John, start shopping away. And the sale this week is Broadway and musicals. Right, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
We are the Focus Group. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, John and I are going to share some memories, wisdom, and thoughts of Barbara Bush, who sadly passed away yesterday. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash here with Tim Bennett. Glad he didn't go anywhere. That's what we call a captive audience. All right, so as Tim said at the end of our last segment for Deep Discount, we had originally planned on talking about Barbara Bush's commitment and statement that she was not seeking further treatment in her heart issues, but she was looking for comfort care, which was, I guess, another way of talking about hospice or end-of-life care. Shortly after she made that declaration and statement, it was 48 hours later. I think it
was Monday, right? We heard Monday, and then she died.
She died 24 hours or 48 hours later. And, many have already seen this on the news, mother to, wife to one president, mother to another. And had things gone differently in a non-dynastic way, Jeb might have actually, gotten the nomination or something.
They always said he was more qualified than any of the children. They thought. Everybody always thought that Jeb.
Well, he had been governor of Florida for a while, right? So, so that's a pretty interesting dynasty to have there, right?
Well, they said Abigail Adams was the only other first lady to have the same, wife of one president, mother of another. And I often wondered what it would have been like, because growing up, you always think of the Kennedy dynasty.
Yep.
But the reality was, yes, there were lots of Kennedys involved in either local, and you had Ted Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy. But the Bushes really quietly had a much bigger dynasty, I think, more so than even the Kennedys. And they're talking a lot about, I know there was some resentment, having grown up in Connecticut, that there was, the Bushes left Connecticut. She was from Rye, New York. He was from Connecticut. When they went to Texas, and then people felt they sort of gave up, or they left their New England roots.
I'm not so sure about that.
But they still kept their place in Kennebunkport. And I don't know if you remember when I used to fly at a Westchester County airport, which, for those of you in other parts of the country, that borders Greenwich, Connecticut. And when we used to leave, the pilots would always announce, and this is particularly when I was in college flying to Ohio, they would say, we're going to take off in a very unconventional method. And the pilots would talk about, they say, we're going to really climb very steep, and then it's going to sound as if we shut the engines down, which we do, and then we're going to float, and then you'll hear us pick up steam again. Do you know why they did that?
That's because they're probably going over the Bush
compound.
Their airspace, yeah.
And up until his mother died, that happened at that airport. That's what you did. You climbed, you kind of floated over, and then you went, because you weren't to disturb the Bushes.
Well, one of the things that clearly, a lot of people fall onto different opinions about this. And, the First Lady, it was an unelected position. And yet it's ripe for the picking, meaning a lot of people can easily shake a stick at it or say, I hated what she did here, I didn't like. But I would say that, the Bushes have always comported themselves in a very classy fashion.
Civility, yeah.
It was about being a gentleman. It was about being a lady. It was about being polite. It was about treating other people with respect. And I think that she carried that through to the end. And you actually pulled up some quotes that I really love of hers. And we were originally going to talk about one that she has said repeatedly, which is, at a certain point in your life, you're not going to, on your deathbed, you're not going to lay there and say, boy, I wish I'd gone to that meeting, or I wish I'd done that PowerPoint deck.
I wish I closed that deal.
I wish I'd sold more widgets or whatever. You're gonna miss not having spent more time with family, children, friends. And at the end of your life, you will never regret not having passed one more test, not winning one more verdict, or not closing one more deal. You will regret time not spent with a husband, a friend, a child, or a parent. And I love the way that comes from thecomfortingquotes.com, and it's from Barbara Bush. But how many times do we have to be told this?
Yeah.
To bring us back to the reality of, enjoying the people around you. And I think that she made family a big, big priority.
Well, and they said, and that was a speech that was given in 1990 at Wellesley at the graduation, she being a Smith grad. And the other great quote I love there, only because I think it reminded me an awful lot of her son's quote at Yale, but it was, she said, someday there may be somebody out there who's also
I think you got that on the
also
deck,
the spouse of the president of the United States, and I wish her well. Meaning that
I wish him. I think there was
because it was going to be that the president, the reverse role, that the man would be the
husband, would be the first lady,
spouse. And I always thought that was great because it was unexpected, particularly that time in the late 80s, early 90s, which was always that famous quote of Bush at Yale saying, "For all you A students, congratulations, and for all you C students, you could be president one day."
I remember that one.
They said that she. So last night when I heard the news, I went and they said she had a bourbon was her last drink.
A bourbon, thank God.
So I went and I poured myself a tiny little bit of bourbon, and at 9 o'clock at night, and I toasted Barbara because I thought, what? God bless her. They said her last drink was a bourbon. They said this morning they had talked with George and Laura, and they said her spirits were good. She was very comforted in her decision to not seek further treatment. But they did say something funny, and even George Bush laughed. I don't know if you heard it, but this was a week ago when she made this decision. And the surgeon was in there, and the surgeon says to her, and George is in there, she says to the surgeon, "Do you know why George is the way he is, George W.?" And the surgeon's like, "No." And she goes, "I smoked and drank the whole time I was pregnant with him."
You know the way he is?
You know the reason he is the way he is? I smoked and drank the whole time I was pregnant with him. Which you did back then, right? I mean, that was the deal. The one thing I remember about her, and it was some interview, and it might be the sort of thing where people just throw it away. She had talked about as much as they moved, and they moved 29 times or something, and they talked about coming from a family that has lots of things, lots of material things. And they were just sitting in the house, and she said, "You know what? I don't have a set of dishes that's not been broken. I don't have a full set of dishes or a glass that doesn't have a chip in it or a table that doesn't have a scratch or a ring in it." And she said, "If you have the stuff, use them." And I thought as a piece of wisdom we have so many friends and family that might have this set of dishes you never want to use because you don't want to break
dishes, the Thanksgiving dishes.
I always say to people, if you have a nice set of...
Use it.
If you have a nice set of dishes or china, because guess what? Nobody wants it after you go. Probably. Which I hate to say, but I always say to people, and a good friend of ours has all these sets of china, and I said to her, use it as every day. If one breaks... you got another 8 of them. When's the last time you had 8 people over for a dinner party? But I thought that was such a great thing for her to say is we had nice things, we still do, but use them.
Use them. Yeah.
It's like saving the bottle of wine for that special moment. The special moments today, you're alive. Have the bottle of wine tonight.
Well, here's one quote you have for her. Never lose sight of the fact that the most important yardstick of your success will be how you treat other people. Yes, thumbs up to this. In fact, that's a business axiom, I would say, as well. We are remembered in business and in our jobs for how we've acted, how we've treated other people. And those who don't treat other people well are remembered a very particular way.
Well, they always say there's a way you could have discourse, or there's a way you could
disagree, but agreeably.
Not be, right.
Disagree agreeably.
Right, and do it respectfully. And I think on that same slide was that quote you and I were looking for, Garrett. If you could, or John, put it back up again. It was the one about somewhere out there. I think it's the one on the left.
Yeah, that's it.
What did that say?
Somewhere out in this audience may be someone who will one day follow my footsteps and preside over the White House as the president's spouse. I wish him well.
that was a great one. But
she's even shown up in popular culture. Do you remember the Naked Gun series?
Yes.
Wasn't she like someone body tackles the body double of and it's like "Gray Lady down," unless that was the airplane. No, it was Naked Gun, "Gray Lady down." But what we had wanted to talk about, and I think we should a little bit, is that decision she made to have comfort care, palliative care at the end, and to do hospice style stuff. That's a very valid thing that I think, and one clinician and one doctor said in here that when someone of Barbara Bush's age, of 92, says, and who's suffering from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, these aren't things you recover from.
Yeah, and they said that since 2016.
Yep, and you're on serious medications. You worry about your heart a great deal. 92, she makes the decision to go to comfort care. I think it's a reasoned, smart thing to say, no more treatment. And it's a beautiful thing when she could say, I've had a great life. This is the run. I look at the family. I have all these kids and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And maybe in a different world, she could be with us until she's 110. But that's not this world, and she has this illness. So the article that we looked at on comfort care, the experts definitely encourage people to have discussions with loved ones, write those things down, get your wishes down, and let everybody know that's what you want at the end of life, if that's the way it goes. Because we're not all going to be in perfect health, right?
My grandfather had that directive, and it was very difficult on my mom, I know, because...
But not your grandmother, though. She was...
My grandmother had what you call the millionaire's death, died in her sleep, and my other grandmother... also died very quickly, as did my other grandfather. But my mom's dad, it was a long death. It was a long, slow death. But he decided, they had the discussion that he didn't want any additional care, and he wanted to die at home, which he did. But my mom says, as it was happening, you want to call the ambulance. You want to say, let me help you with your breathing or whatever. But he didn't want any of that. And she still remembers the last time he was, I guess, lucid. She said, do you know who I am? Can you see who I am? He goes, I don't know who you are, but you got a glow around your head. And then he said, see you, Captain. He used to do, stuff sailing or whatever in Canada. And then that was that. That was kind of his last words. But, you wonder about when you get to that age, you lose all your, and probably similar to her, you lose most of your friends. You've lost most of.
You're losing your physical abilities.
But your time's.
Now, I'll flip this around.
Time's up, I guess.
There's a guy in my old apartment building named Jerry. He just turned 94. He stopped playing tennis at 89. Wow. Last time I saw him, firm handshake. How you doing? Did you move yet? Oh, we're going to miss you here. I mean, there's that flip side of it too, where you could be in great health and keep going. Although in his case, he's suffered through losing 2 wives to 2 different diseases, which are just ghastly to think about. But the one last thing I would say about Barbara Bush was going back to George W. He said the decision, or he said this was not as difficult thing to process because the whole family was at peace. They had all had conversations with her. They all had time with Grandma and with Barbara Bush, so that when the event actually happened, everybody felt that it was sort of tied up in a nice way, as opposed to some kind of weird sudden death. Like, totally unrelated, that poor woman who almost got sucked out of a plane the other day. You read about that?
Yeah.
Right? Could you imagine? Oh, I'll see you for dinner. I'm flying.
She died.
She did.
Yeah. I can't imagine. They said she was out from her waist
up.
Which is just horrible. That was that Southwest plane that had the emergency landing in Philly. Yeah. I can't imagine how horrible that would have been, and what a horrible...
The guy that helped pull her back in was totally shaken when they interviewed her. But so anyway, I think there's that. There's an immediate sudden thing, which you have no way of connecting with somebody for last words or a last conversation. Then there's this very thoughtful, intelligent way of ending.
I want to hope I have that sort of grace. I hope that when I go, it's quick and I don't know it, but... I often wonder how people have that. My dad's mom, my grandmother, had a lot of clarity that it was her time.
And she was at peace with
announced
it.
to everybody it was her time, and she was fine with it. And then she, kind of died on cue. But I don't.
God, when you say that, I'm seeing a film crew with a clapboard.
She called my mom and dad. I was in Colorado on business. My mom says, don't be alarmed and don't bother coming home. But your grandmother says she's going to die Saturday. This was Wednesday. She said, your father and I are going up to Nova Scotia to go see her.
Wow.
And they got there Friday. They had lunch with her. And Saturday morning, she was gone. So that's the way it works. So we have one more
shop talk.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, John and I are going to talk about an item you can find on Amazon. It's a straight pin.
Straight pride.
Straight pride pin. Stay with us.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Been in business a week. I got more money than I know what to do with.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
Herrera Rocher. He is doing well.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. We were just talking about Barbara Bush, her very graceful passing, and all the contributions she made as first lady, first mother, first grandmother. I guess it's
they said after they left the White House, she and President Bush raised over $1 billion for charity, various charities.
Isn't that something?
I think it's great if you can do that. If you can have that sort of
Here's something she didn't raise money for.
What's that?
So Tim finds this.
Oh.
I'm sure she would not have her hands on this. Headline: Amazon is selling a straight pride badge and people are not happy. The online retail giant is selling the gold-plated flag pin badge on behalf of a company called 1,000 Flags. Named the Straight Heterosexual Pride Wavy Gold-Plated Flag Pin Badge, it's available for £450 on Amazon UK.
About $10.
I did not see it on our US site, but here's how Twitter reacted to some of this. Quote, straight pride is seemingly as beige as most straight people's personalities.
Look at how ugly that pin is. If you're watching on the video, what colors are those, John? It's like
all beiges. And in fact, here's my favorite one. Yeah, here's my favorite ones. The irony of a straight pride flag being an eyeshadow palette. Or another one. Why does the straight pride flag look like Sephora's eyeshadow for beginners sampler? Because it's just it goes dark brown to light brown to white or something. It's just crazy. Straight allies are actually outraged by the pin as well. As a straight person, I would like to apologize for this abomination. You know, and one guy says, if I saw someone wearing that, I'd assume they really like bacon.
It looks like bacon. Yeah, bacon. Do you want it crispy? Do you want it just? So,
Tim, why did you, I think your reasoning was because of the end of the article where around gay pride, a lot of people talk about straight pride, and being straight is not, here's a quote, being straight is not easy under any circumstances of our society. Straight people are being persecuted every day by political correctness. I read this and I think to myself, really? Were you not hauled off and beat up at the side?
Well, this is, and some of this I blame on the Russians. Because they're infiltrating.
Not only are they,
they're infiltrating the UK and Europe as much as here. So this is stirring it up, I think. So the straight pride print, if you think about it, I'm going to blame the Russians. But so there's groups similar to the crazies we have here in the U.S. That are upset about all the political correctness going on, and they added that we need to crush the gay agenda. And we need straight pride to demonstrate that being heterosexual is nature's way. If the gays can have their day, so can normal humans.
Jesus,
So this has got Russia all over it, if you ask me.
Normal human? I'm not normal?
So I picked at it for a couple of reasons, because you end up getting this all the time. Well, can we have a straight day? Or can we have, so during Black History Month, do we have White History Month? Or can we have Men's History Month instead of Women's History Month? And so that's the slippery slope. And I see that stuff on Facebook sometimes, and I just shake my head. I used to try to engage, and I don't even bother anymore. And I know you're very good about not engaging with that kind of.
I'm afraid to engage because I'll say something like logical, and oh boy, that's gonna. I wonder about this. Are you that worried about being straight that you can't let gay people have Pride Day? One day out of 365. It's just
Or I've just often wondered, why does anybody care?
Why do they care?
And I think about that about a lot of things. If you don't, it's like boycotting TV or boycotting certain things. Sometimes it's on my radar. Now, I will say, in the news going on, and I was wondering, this may be a kind of an odd segue, but the issue in Philadelphia, the two African-American men that were
Starbucks
arrested at Starbucks, And so there's two schools of thought there. Somebody labeled it perfectly. There was an African-American pundit, and of course I'm going to forget his name, but he's from Princeton, and he essentially called it white fear.
Yeah.
He says we need to get over this. We need to figure out how to get beyond what they call white fear. And when you watch the video, there's so many things about that. And I'm glad somebody took the video, but so many things that went on there that just could not have, it didn't have to escalate to where it did. Now, fortunately, it wasn't violent. Fortunately, nobody was killed, as these things tend to go. However, I thought to myself, I've been to Starbucks, and if you're waiting for somebody, you and I have done this a million times, you go in there and you might have to use the bathroom. But if we're going to meet somebody, you'll wait till they get there, because then maybe someone's going to buy us. We're all going to order a drink together and have a iced tea or a cup of coffee or something. And I know the bathrooms are trying to keep homeless out and people decamping in the bathrooms. So you have to get a code, da-da-da-da-da. And I thought when the police arrived, if I was a police officer and somebody called me, I'd be like, you want to do what?
Well,
and they said, I'm waiting here. Then you'd say, well, let me buy him a cup of coffee and move on.
Yeah, and you just hit the very first, what I call the first baseline of conduct. Excuse me? Because if you're colorblind, it's just two guys waiting for a friend in a very public space that encourages you to hang out. It's not like there's a sign that says buy and leave, right?
And this is in the area of Philadelphia, Rittenhouse Square, which is the nicest area in town. But the guys were waiting for a friend of theirs who happened to be white, and they were going to talk about some real estate things. And when the friend shows up, he's still asking, well, what's going on? Now, again, if you were the police, instead of taking him out in handcuffs, you'd be like, oh, this is your friend? What are you guys getting? Order a cup of coffee. And then I would have pulled the manager aside and said, you know what? We have a lot of other things going on in Philadelphia than for you to worry about somebody wanting to use the bathroom and then buy a cup of coffee. So
was there a statistic, I believe that I read it and it was published, that particular zone of Philly is the one that the number 70% sticks out as 70% of this type of call to the police. Those calls they're predominantly from that area, and it's the white fear. It's the white fear thing. So I can't imagine how that feels to be worried that that's going to happen simply because of the color of your skin, right? And so I guess your tangent here was correctness or the perceived thoughts.
Well, it's in fairness and everything else, but we didn't talk about it earlier, and not that it escaped my mind, but it's been in the news a lot, and I thought we should. And I was wondering, from the business side, did Starbucks do the right thing? So they're closing every store, all 8,000 stores on, I believe it's mid to late May.
Like a teach-in or something?
Putting everybody through racial sensitivity training. And again, I started thinking, I go to Starbucks a lot. I would say majority of the baristas or people that work there are people of color, or young college students or something. And so for me, and maybe this is people will call it white privilege or whatever else, maybe I didn't think about it, but to me, I thought, man, this is just it. For that to happen in Philadelphia the way it did, I just was like, man, this is just really just so stupid and really escalated beyond anything that should have ever happened. But I believe that seems to be what all the Black Lives Matter movement's about, right?
Mm-hmm. One more proof in the pudding that we are certainly not. We are not. What was when Obama was elected? What was the catchphrase people were using? Or
post-racial.
Yeah. We are so far from being a post-racial society. In fact, I would say that you're looking at least 2 generations before this even starts to get fixed on some fundamental level, because it's so hardwired. It's scary, actually. I do get the notion of when people, someone was talking with me about that exact phrase about white privilege, and this young guy said, he goes, do you know what it is? And I said, I do know what it is. I said, I suppose I've had it most of my life, right? And it's like a professor I had in college once said, at the beginning of I think I mentioned this once before, at the beginning of a sociology class, he said, if you are male and you are white and you live in the United States of America today, it is your life to toss away, because everything's being handed to you on a silver platter. And the class erupts, students, and he got the conversation going.
Affirmative action, all the other.
And women were chiming in. But there's some sense to what he said, right? In a patriarchal society like we seem to live in, even though there's a lot of things changing, when I was in school, that wasn't exactly off the mark, right? and you see this behavior at Starbucks, that's...
Yeah. I will say I think there's also an economic piece
yes.
to a lot of this as well. But the Starbucks thing for me brought a lot of it in because, again, you immediately say, well, something else must have gone on or something else must have happened.
Nothing else went on. They just hanging out for a friend.
Here it was very much in, lack of a better word, black and white on the video. And what I didn't understand was when the friend shows up and when the other patron's like, well, what's going on here?
But they just dropped.
There were 8 police that had to come for this. Again, Philadelphia's got so many other problems going on that someone that wants to use the bathroom probably isn't the good use of police resources.
You have 2 great points. One of them, the biggest one to me, is the response. The response was fail. It's a fail, right? And that's the one that fascinates me the most because it didn't have to go anywhere. The cop could have walked to the manager and said, really?
Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me?
You're wasting our time. I would have reprimanded the manager to say, you called us for this?
Exactly. And maybe in our day that would have actually happened. Maybe if Barbara Bush had been called, she would have called them out and said, don't act like this. This is crazy. Because there's a quote that she said to Jenna Bush, or I guess her granddaughter. She said, they called her the enforcer. Because when she saw bad behavior, she enforced the good stuff. No, you shouldn't do that. Maybe a good dose of that, right? Like that, it should have stopped at the start, which is you made the call. It was the wrong call to make. I'm leaving. These guys are fine.
Yeah, which is, again, so you're right. There was probably some sort of training on the side of law enforcement that probably should have been, somebody there should have had a clearer head. But anyway, well, we solved all the problems today. Anyway.
Next week, World Hunger.
Well, the boys in the booth. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We want to thank thank you, John. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Allie. Yoo-hoo. There they are.
Anytime, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. Be sure to go over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, and start shopping away. And a special thanks goes to our partners here on the Focus Group, Volkswagen of America. There's some great new product coming out right now at the Volkswagen dealerships. And, of course, you could also see them at line. But find your local retailer or check out the new cars at VW.com. And what else? Oh, John, we've got a podcast I hope everybody listens to, TFG Unbuttoned, which is lined up where all our other audio is as well. So if you go to Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud or wherever else you consume our audio, you'll be able to find our latest podcast there. It comes out every Tuesday morning, right? I can't say.
Actually, yeah, if you consider midnight. Yeah.
So, hey, don't text and drive. Arrive alive, and we'll see you next week.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.